Hey guys, it is Shauna Chambers. For those of you who don't know me, I am the youth director at First United Methodist Church in a little town of Huntington, West Virginia. And I am doing this thing, and this is called The Gap. And it's where we are trying to take some time to gain authentic perspective. So we are taking 40 days to dive into 40 different conversations with 40 different people and try to break down those walls, gain authentic perspective, and help fill in that gap because Lord knows we need it. So today with me, I have David Webb, and he is from Oklahoma City, and I am really excited to have him on. I found him, well, he actually found me on TikTok, and I am really excited to have him. So David, thank you for hopping on, and will you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm very excited about this opportunity. But like you said, my name is David Webb. I'm from Oklahoma City. I'm 36 years old. Here in May, I would have been married for 5 years. No children yet, but in the process. So I joined the military, the Oklahoma National Guard, as soon as I got out of high school. So I am still currently serving. So I will be in my 18th year um, in April. So I've definitely had a lot of experience with that. I've been overseas twice. I've even done some stateside things, like deal with Hurricane Katrina. I was down there for that at the very beginning of it. Um, and Hurricane Harvey and several other things here in Oklahoma. As you guys can probably imagine, we have a lot of bad weather here. So we're activated all the time trying to help out. Uh, but aside from being in the Army, I kind of have a love for technology. So anything dealing with videography, photography, and technology in general is kind of my passion. And that's what my day to day job is. I'm a technology developer at an engineering firm here in Oklahoma City. Um, it's actually based out of Tulsa, but we have an office here in Oklahoma City. And as far as why I kind of reached out and saw you on TikTok and was kind of gravitated to it is because I also have a passion for youth and a passion for setting up a good standard and a good culture for those coming after me.
I think that's awesome. And thank you for your service and your continued service. Um, was that a hard decision to jump from high school to military?
Um, Harder than you would think, just in the facet of one, I didn't know anything about the military, but a recruiter came and talked to me and my dad. And whenever I was coming out of high school, I was a pretty successful athlete, and they invited me to what's called the Junior Olympics in Australia. However, you have to pay for your own way, and we were extremely poor, so that quickly became not an option. And I said, okay, well, I guess I'll try this military thing for a while since it's a National Guard. It's not a very long contract whenever you first sign up. And whenever I got in, I fell in love with just the structure and how regimented things can be. And it kind of opened up my eyes to a different way of thinking and looking at life and the approach of life. And then quickly, like I said, I went to Hurricane Katrina, and then after that went to Iraq. So um, it's given me a lot of perspective. But as far as the decision, it was kind of like either I struggled to try to find my way to get to Australia or join the military. So I got the military shot.
I think it's funny that you said, the National Guard is like a short term type of thing. And here you are 18 years later. So
Right. Yes, I definitely signed a few contracts since the first one, and but I haven't regretted it. A lot of the friends that I actually all of the friends I have in my immediate circle are part of the National Guard. So.
so like you said that you have, National Guard gets sent out to like Hurricane Katrina,
Mhm.
Hurricane Harvey, and all of these different types. And you went to Iraq. You said Iraq, right? Uh,
Yes, I've been to both Iraq and Afghanistan.
like, so you've seen
Yes.
a lot. You've experienced a lot. Have you seen God work? Have you like in because those are times where like any one of those were times of like really hard. Like I remember the videos like it was yesterday with Hurricane Katrina.
Mhm.
That was like the first big storm that I remember, like that, like I'm like, okay, wow. That I was old enough to be aware um
Mhm.
of. And I had people, I was in high school at the time. So like a junior, and we actually had people come up here from that area and end up going to school. So did you see God work at all like while you were there?
Definitely. Definitely. It's not really a joke, but I tell people that those 30 days during Hurricane Katrina that I was down there for, so the very beginning of it was probably the hardest 30 days of my military career. Now, this is someone that's been overseas in combat, but even that didn't compare to how difficult it was to see other Americans in such a displaced situation. So it was very difficult to see that, but I did see God work. There were several people that He allowed us to save that weren't able to get out. There are several people who, you know, should not have been able to find their family, but they still were able to somehow, through all of the turmoil and through all of the craziness, come together and find children and brothers and sisters. And like I said, just to be able to make it out, just because we see the water and we see the flooding, but there's just a lot of other things that were going on. And it's just a bad situation overall. But God saw them fit to be able to go through that and survive. So that was one of the biggest things. And then honestly, it helped me um, just because prior to Hurricane Katrina, you go to basic training, you go to AIT, and everything's just like dress right dress, and everything is just so structured. Then you come back and you go to the National Guard, and it's not really the same because now you have to go be a civilian for most of the month and then you're military just for those 2 days, and it's just not the same feeling. But because of Hurricane Katrina, it kind of opened up my eyes. Oh wow, we really do have a very important job.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that God kind of used that for me, and He's allowed me to excel since really Hurricane Katrina, honestly.
And did you get to like be in the dome where everybody was?
Yes. So our job for my unit, whenever we first got down there, was to help assist people through the Superdome. There was a huge parking lot, and then there was a mall right beside it. So our job was to assist people coming from the Superdome and everywhere else through that huge parking lot, through the mall on the backside, which had buses taking people every which way. And like I said, I just remember there was a lot of times that, given the ethnicity of those people, they had to use me, at the time, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid to instruct other people just because, of my race. They were like, well, we'll listen to him. Well, we won't listen to you. And I'm just like, I'm just a kid, but can you guys move to the left or, do whatever needs to be done. So, but yes, I was there for that. We did a lot of rescue missions as far as driving out through the water and people still being on top of houses and pulling them into the truck and driving them back over there to that area. So, like I said, that 30 days was pretty rough 30 days of my life for sure.
So you were like pushed into leadership pretty much because like in most cases like you would be the one kind of almost like like shadowing other people like all right like I'm new here.
I'm
And
just
here
the
you are
Joe,
like
is what we call them. Yeah, I'm just the regular guy. I'm just
yeah,
the
and
Joe.
so and then all of a sudden it's like well you look like me so I'm I'm
Mhm.
I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to listen to
Yes,
you. I'm not going to listen to anyone else because I know you're going to take care of me. Um
yes.
and I mean, thank God that you were there because,
Oh,
you
yeah.
probably you provided that safety, that comfort, because it's just like and that's all That's all ethnicities, all cultures. Like if you're in an uncomfortable situation, you automatically kind of feel comfortable if you see someone that looks like you. I mean,
Mhm.
really, like it doesn't matter. Like if you get thrown into, I mean, I went to Haiti before, and we got stuck in customs because we had like all these different medical equipment and all this stuff to try to help. And we got stuck outside of customs because they could only talk to two people, and we were just like surrounded. And it wasn't uncomfortable because everybody was super nice, but from where there was so many people swarming us trying to, so quote unquote, help carry our luggage and stuff, it was uneasy if you've never been in that type of situation.
Wow.
um and coming from, guys, uh if you're part of my youth or you're in West Virginia, like 2 weeks ago, we had ice storms and over 100,000 people without power,
Wow.
internet, electric, all of that stuff. And then we go from that. Today is flooding and everything else, because of all of the rain that we had gotten this past week. So the rivers rising, people, it's crazy. But just think about that and multiply it, um,
Mhm.
and not being able to find your family. There's no safe place except for the dome, um, and the fear that they probably felt. Um, so it's just crazy. It's crazy, and I mean, it's crazy how God uses you. You wanted to go to Australia, but
Yes.
you ended up being exactly where God needed you. Um,
At the exact time. Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
So speaking of leadership, so you're in the military, whenever you're going through basic and all of that, like you follow, you don't, so you have to learn to follow. But I feel like that is a part of leadership is, because then they are trying, and then they push you into a leadership position. They throw you
Yes.
and like, all right, there you go. Um, so what makes, I know that your passion is leadership and stuff like that. So what do you think makes a good leader?
Well, there's several different attributes that make a good leader. But for me, it is really being very observant of not only the task and the situation at hand, but also the people under you. Um, the people over you will give you insight and instruction. And if they don't, then again, it just takes you kind of looking at the situation and seeing what needs to be done. But true great leadership, in my opinion, um, are are those people who are able to not only inspire those under them to accomplish tasks, but also to pull out from them the best version of themselves. So uh, that's not always easy. The people under you might look at you as being harsh or hard, but as long as it's done in love and for a common goal, that's what really marks a good leader is recognizing the talent in certain people and putting them in the best situation to be able to display that talent and to help the team or the group or whatever it might be. um, and then also being an example yourself, understanding that how you carry yourself, how you talk to other people, will really determine how people view you and see you. And people will follow you or they'll look at you in the other light, like, oh, I don't want to be like that. So no one ever wants to be that leader. But leadership is really that. And then I would say, in the same light, leadership is not always a position. Those people who are in leadership can be your peers, or you can be peers with other people. Leadership is about those that um, stand out or stand above in certain regards to help others through. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the boss is the leader. Someone that is a part of the team or the crew can be the leader. So leadership is really kind of defined on the situation.
Um, I think that I like that you said that because I've had a couple conversations like with youth, and I'm like, I don't think you realize like that you are a leader. And especially whenever you're young, you don't even maybe some people do have that stirring and they're like, yes, I want to be captain of the football team or the band or anything, or, first seat, they want to be, the lead of the play or anything like that. But then there's others that are like, no, I'm not a leader. And you see it. So
Mhm.
just because you're not like a captain or you're not the lead of the play or anything like that, that doesn't mean that you don't have those qualities to be a leader, because God continues. I mean, just think about David's story. It's
Yeah.
he was he was 19 and he was not thinking that he was going to be a leader, and then he got thrown into a situation. God's like, no, I'm going to use you because these people need you. There are people out there that need you.
Right. Yeah. That's all I said. It's not a position. It's really just a situation, and you can be a leader in any facet of your life. So we're all called to do something, and some people are called to lead even if they're not in that position yet. So, like you said, David was out doing his job, tending to the flock, and was told, "Hey, go take some lunch to the actual soldiers out there," and then we see how his story ended up. So
Yep. Um, Now you kind of touched base on culture and building culture, especially, I mean, West Virginia has a stereotype, and some people think that like and actually we kind of are like in this little bubble. Some people that come here, they're like, y'all are your own world. Like it's crazy. But we do have that loving mentality. But you know, a lot of people aren't very cultured, like in a expansion point of view. Like they don't have a lot of different points of views. So like, what are some ways that people can build on their knowledge of different cultures and stuff like that?
well, the first thing that you really need to do is really just be honest with yourself about that, how we do things or how we view things. We, as in whatever culture you're currently in, is just a way and not the way. So
Mm,
really humbling yourself and just saying, okay, yeah, this works for us, but different people have different situations. So understanding that piece, I think, is the very first thing that you need to do. And then be open minded to other people and be willing to listen, not only just hear them, but actually listen and try to analyze, why they feel that way and not just dismiss it just because it's not the way that you do it. So proper cultural building is continuous. It never ends. You do find certain things that work for you in your culture, but also understand that, people's situation is different. You in West Virginia are going to have a lot different experiences. Being a woman is going to have a lot different experiences than me being a Black male in Oklahoma City. So if I can understand that, you might view things differently because of those attributes, then I can respect your culture and see if there are certain things that I might want to ingest or integrate within mine. So proper culture building is a necessity for us to push past the barriers that we've set up, especially whenever we start talking about like the church and understanding that we don't need to be in competition with one another. If we all fall under believing in Jesus and believing in His Word, we don't need to be in competition with one another. It's almost like different churches have different cultures, which is okay to a certain extent. But at the end of the day, we all have a baseline. So how we get there is going to be different as far as ingesting the word. But as long as we have those as a baseline, then we should be good.
yeah. And it's like at the end of the day, we're all part of the body of Christ. Like,
Yes.
and just because, some people like sermon get more out of the sermon and some people get more out of the praise and worship, it doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, we all have a job. we all need to be worshiping God. And, it's crazy because like I've had like little spurts. Like I went to Haiti. Like I said before, I went to Haiti, and speaking of cultures, like one of the things that they were like, hey, don't whistle. Like it's a sign of disrespect. Like even if you're just whistling a song. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I never ever want to feel like to disrespect someone. So whenever I went to Haiti, I made sure that I didn't, like little things that you would never even think about. You have to be aware. Whenever I went to, I worked in Raleigh, North Carolina, it was crazy because I've had multiple different types of friends, different cultures, different ethnicities, and everything else. But in Raleigh during the time, I don't know now, but during the time that I was working there, it was crazy because I was walking down the street, and a black man was walking the same street, and he crossed the street, and ended up going a different, like same direction. We were passing, and he went on the other side of the street. And I was like, I don't understand. That happened to me multiple times. And he's like, well, it's a different culture down here.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I don't understand because
Right.
I wasn't used to that. But also like, it's also making sure that I mean, if you haven't listened, I've pointed it out. There's been multiple times on this that we've talked about listening, and it's really hard to listen and realize, like, there are some boundaries, and we need to respect the boundaries, but we also need to make sure that we're having those conversations. And sometimes it's hard to have those conversations. But you're never ever going to grow if you don't expand your knowledge on something and everything. Like it doesn't
Right.
matter. Pick a passion, what you're passionate about, and expand on it. Because I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what you're passionate about. There are so many different views on it. And make sure that everybody at your table doesn't look like you and act like you and think like you. Because I'm telling you, that's whenever you get stuck.
Yes. Yeah, I think that the term that we use is group think.
Mhm.
So if you just surrounding yourself around the same people with the same ideas, it might feel good and you might actually feel comfortable. But what makes and I tell my National Guard unit this all the time. What makes us strong is our differences. Is
Mm.
the fact that I have several different ideas, several different backgrounds coming all together for a common goal, and I try to use that to the best of my ability. Again, just kind of going back to leadership and identifying that I have these different cultures up under me in my command, and just kind of using that to my advantage. But yeah, it definitely takes you being humble and takes you listening to other people.
I love that because I think differences are so beautiful. I think it makes
Yes.
us beautiful. I think different cultures are so beautiful. I think that's one of my favorite things is, even if I'm not like just totally surrounded by it, even if I'm just like watching a video and someone being, even if it's like the indigenous people, like watching them in their culture, like I think it's so beautiful. African people, whenever they are like around, like with their like tribal meetings and stuff like that, if you ever watch one of those, like it's amazing, it's so beautiful. And why would we ever want to be the same? Like we need to embrace our differences, but we also need to respect other people's differences. Um,
Definitely.
okay, I totally forgot. We just dove right in, and I totally forgot about the food, and I love the food. I told you that my husband did his, basic in Oklahoma, and he loves the food in Oklahoma. Um, but if you're having a bad day and you need some comfort food, what restaurant can't cook it? All right. What restaurant would you go to and what would you get?
Oh, what restaurant would I go to? Um, well, we have several here, but if I just needed comfort food, uh, I would probably go. Um, I mean, if it's not a chain, because I love my fuzzies. I don't know if y'all have a fuzzies out there,
We
fuzzies
don't.
taco, but oh yeah, fuzzies tacos. Boy, those are those are delicious. But there's actually a local restaurant chain here called Brielle. So if you're in Oklahoma City in the metro area, um, there's a place called Brielle's, and hopefully one day they'll hear this, so they'll be like, "Oh, we got a shout out." So it's only like two of them, but it is phenomenal. It is absolutely delicious. It's Cajun style food with an Oklahoma twist on it a little bit, and that's where I would go personally. If it's not a food chain, like a major food chain, which I guess they're not that major if you all don't have fuzzies there. Y'all got an Olive Garden? Y'all got one of them?
Yes, we got an
Okay,
Olive Garden.
making sure.
We're not that small, man. We're not.
Oh no, Oklahoma's small too. No, yeah, if it ain't Fuzzies or Olive Garden, then definitely Brielle's. That's someplace locally that I mean the service is great and the food is fantastic. So um, if you all are ever in the metro of Oklahoma City or whoever's listening to this, go to Brielle's. If you're in the metro, you probably have already been there. But yeah, if you ever come to Oklahoma City, seek out Brielle's.
All right. It's so funny because like literally, I don't know where it was, but he always talk like my husband Josh, he always talks about like the Cajun type of food. So I don't know if he's ever been there, but I'll have
Oh
to
yeah,
check.
they're newer. It depends on how long ago he was here.
It
But
was a while ago. It was a
okay,
while. It
yeah.
was like, I don't know. It was like 8 years ago.
Well, if he ever finds himself here, or if you all ever find yourself here, you have my number. So
Yeah.
definitely hit me up, and we'll go over have some Cajun food.
Um, all right. So I know that I kind of just steered, but I never miss the food part because I feel like I'm all about tables and stuff and like and I'm all about food. And I feel like that's one thing that could bring everybody together is food. Like
Oh yeah,
you can't
definitely.
argue, like even if we ever fall into an intense conversation, intense topics in this, like you can never argue about food. Like
Right, right.
um everybody gets hungry. We all get hungry. We all need to eat. So, but just to switch it back, so if you had to um, relate to one of the biblical characters, biblical people in the Bible, the people in the Bible, who would you relate to the most? Who would not who you want to, but who you would actually be like, oh yeah, I'm more like this person. Um,
Right. Well, we already hit on it. Is really David. In understanding not only his story in his youth, but also as he grew older, in understanding that you are this leader, but you don't have the title yet, but you're this leader, and then you know his predecessor trying to kill him and everything like that. But I really relate to him as far as you know, David fought with the lion, with the bear before Goliath. So the things that I have going on in my life, even currently, which might seem like a giant, people just don't know that in the dark, whenever no one was there, the things I've already had to overcome and deal with, and have the Lord on my side to be able to provide me with the strength to get through those things. I'm using that as ammunition, if you will, to get through the things that I'm going through currently, and the things that I foresee will happen. Anybody that is in a storm, just understand that the storm won't last always. So if you just endure with Him, you'll be able to push through. And if you're not in a storm, prepare yourself because one day there will be one.
mm,
But the more that you pour into yourself, if you read throughout David's story, it always says, and God was with David, and God was with David. And the reason is because David stayed rooted in God. So I try to emulate that part of him, but I do resonate with his story as far as being cast into leadership at a very young age and really kind of not looking back in that regards.
I I love that. And that one of my favorite parts of the story is the fact, not the actual Goliath and David part, but the before Goliath. And he was dismissed by his family pretty much. He was just, he was the field guy. He was the one that, like, was out in the fields and had to fight those. Nobody knew what he had to fight in the wilderness times. And
Mhm.
but God used that. So those times
Mhm.
where those battles that you aren't fighting out on the front lines are preparing you for the front lines.
Yeah.
So even if it's like the tedious things, like even if you're going through a season where literally nothing's going right, and it doesn't mean like something catastrophic is happening, but it's just like little battle after little battle after little battle, like you don't have time to breathe, it's still preparing you for something bigger. And
Yes.
I love it.
Just stay faithful over those few things. Even like I'm in a job right now that I love. I can there's not that many people that say that they can say that, but I love my job. I'm in my career field of choice. But just last year, I was a contractor. That contract ended, and I was without a job. And I went and picked up some little odds and ends jobs. I even worked at a casino for a little bit, which was crazy, by the way. That should be a conversation for another day. Like that was just very eye opening. But and it was a job that I was just like, I just hated, like just hated going to it.
Mhm.
But I still got up and went to it, and I was still on time. I was still me, so I still was always on time. Still, uniform was looking good or whatnot as best as possible, and I tried to stay faithful in that. And I just remember praying like, God, is this all that you have for me in this lifetime? And then one phone call led to a different job, which was a little bit better, but it was still frustrating, and I was still just like, okay, I'm gonna still continue to put forth all effort into this. And then I got the call for here, and it was just like, wow, it was. I mean, like, and it was like from one job to the next job to the next job to your dream job, literally all in under a year. And I truly believe that it was God just saying, "Hey, I'm giving you this little bit. What are you gonna do with it? Are you just gonna blow it off because it's not what you really want? Or are you
Mm.
gonna stay faithful and be who you're supposed to be no matter where you are?" And I truly feel as though God has blessed me with this job just out of the faithfulness of the jobs that I didn't really want to do. I mean, I remember waking up just hot, mad to go to work, and now uh, it's blissful for me to. I don't even look at it as work. I just come into my job and do what I do best, which is technology. So.
And it's just a reminder. That's just a reminder that sometimes in order to get where we are supposed to be,
Mhm.
we have to sometimes sacrifice some things that we don't necessarily want to do or experience or even be a part of. Like sometimes we have to push aside our wants and needs in order to get where we're supposed to go.
Definitely.
All right. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to the youth?
I would say that for one, know that you're not alone, especially if you're a believer. If you're a believer, Jesus died and gave us this awesome thing called the Holy Spirit. So even if you are physically alone, you're not alone. He's always going to be with you. So that's one thing that you need to just have peace within yourself about. And then I would say it's okay to have aspirations and dreams, but then put in the work. Put in
Mm,
the work and allow God's will to be done. Even though you have aspirations and dreams, it might not be what God's will is for you, but you still put in the work. Still be you. Be consistent. Um, and like I said, you don't have to be in a position to be a leader. It is just who you are. Certain people just follow other people. And if you're not in a position of leadership, then use that time to learn and to
mm.
grow and to prepare yourself because one day it'll be you that has to make those decisions. And it'll
Yes.
be you that whenever you make a decision, it affects several different other people or several different other situations. So it's a lot. It's easy whenever you're not, the person in charge to point at the person in charge, like, oh, they should be or they shouldn't be. Don't be that person. Be the observant person. You can learn from good leadership and bad leadership equally, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, so try to absorb everything that you can and to be open minded to new ideas, new cultures. Um, but as long as you are operating within God's will, then you're on the right path. If you feel as though you're alone, you're not. If you feel as though you're confused, um, God will give you a path. He'll give you options, and you can either go down your own way, and He'll still try to steer you back to the right path, but He will show you what the right path is. So it might be the harder one. It might be the one that doesn't look like it's going to amount to much, but He can bless anything. I mean, you just need the faith of a mustard seed. That's what
Mm.
the word says. So that's what I would say. It's just uh, be humble. At Transformation Church, they say hot, humble, open, and transparent. So just try to be humble, learn as much as you can, and just let God lead you.
I love it. I love it. And I like that you touch base that do the work. Like you can't just snap your fingers. If you truly want something, you're going to have to grind. You're going to have to put in the work. You're going to have to, get a little dirty. And there are going to be times where you're going to feel alone, but remember that you're not alone. That's whenever you pick up that Bible, you turn on that uplifting podcast or that sermon, and you look at God and you're like, okay, remind yourself that you're not alone.
And that's the
And
other thing. You got to use technology to your advantage. We use it for everything. We use it for entertainment via, books, movies, music, and all of that. But use it to your advantage. There's something that you want to do, research it. You have unlimited research. Whenever we were kids, we used to have to actually go use encyclopedias and go to libraries and stuff like that. But you have all of that at your fingertips.
mm,
So use what you have around you. Use those elders that are around you to gain greater knowledge, but definitely use the technology. The Bible app is a great tool. I use it every day. I'm coming up on being in triple digits as far as my Bible app streak, so I'm very excited about that.
that's awesome.
But definitely use the technology, and I'll say that probably just because of the field that I'm in right now. But use it to your advantage. You can listen to sermons from years ago, or you can listen to a sermon that happened Sunday from 3 different churches. Uh, so definitely use the technology to your advantage to get the advantage and to get there. If you don't know how to do something, research it. Look at it on YouTube and see if you can't emulate it to help you. But yes, definitely put in the work. And that goes into putting in the work is researching what you need to do, what other people have done, how other people might have been successful or not been successful to help you make your own path.
And if you didn't catch that, um, it's kind of crazy that this was not like planned or anything. Youth, you know that I talk about Michael Todd. Transformation Church is that church, and that's where he goes. So it's kind of crazy that literally last week I was talking about Anchored, and then this week I have one of the people that go to that church on here. So God works in little tiny ways, in just little tiny ways. It just gives you little inklings that, he's here, he's present, and he's seeing you. So I didn't say this, I forgot to say this, but I always ask, or I try to, I'm respectful if there's people that aren't believers, but if they're a believer, I ask, would you pray us out?
Yeah, I have no problem doing that.
Okay.
All right. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to be able to spread the gospel and to be able to speak to other believers and possibly other non believers to hopefully pull them to you, Lord. Lord, I ask that what we discuss today falls on good ground within those that are listening, that they take something from it and that they grow closer to you because of this conversation. Thank you for your grace and for your mercy and for all that you give us and bless us with each and every day. I ask that everyone that is listening to this, that they feel comforted in you, that they feel loved by you, and that they know that because of you, we're able to do all things. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
And I will put any ways that you can get in contact or get in touch with him in the notes. And as always, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for, I hope that you all got something out of it that will help you break down those barriers. Don't be afraid to break down those walls, to get uncomfortable and to gain some authentic perspective. Learn to listen a little bit more, and let's start filling in that gap so we can start healing and making a difference and loving one another. Stay phenomenal. I love you all. And until next time, thank you.
Thank you. See you.